What is good, everybody? Welcome to the Niners Nation Schedule Reaction Live Show. I'm Rob Stats Guerrera, and with me right now is Niner Nate. What is up, Niner Nate?
Sorry, I was tweeting out the link to the stream and talking about why we're going to go 17-0 this year. I'm doing great. I think that schedule was the juice I needed to get ready for my boy Trey to take over.
Look, first of all, if you're not watching the stream, Niner Nate is in the Trey Lance QBU shirt that Lance wore for his pro day. It's the North Dakota State colors and logo. So you're all in already on Trey Lance.
I mean, the initial shock of it not being Justin Fields, I'm kind of over it at this point. And Trey's my guy, and I'm ready to go win. And I hope that he's the quarterback this year. So I'm gonna support my guy until he gives me a reason not to support him, like a certain other quarterback did.
So we are going to be here for about 45 minutes or so, just looking at the schedule, breaking things down. We want your questions, comments, so feel free. Facebook, YouTube, also on Periscope via my Twitter handle, @StatsOnFire. Fire the questions away. We will be happy to answer them. We're going to have different people popping in throughout the night. And look, we knew the opponents, but the order is a huge thing. It definitely matters. I mean, look at the 49ers last year. Right out of the gate, they got hurt. Like that, it totally changes everything. If you have injuries early in the year, but a bunch of cupcakes, you can survive it, as opposed to all your tough games early, and then you're, 2-6 or whatever it is, and your season's kind of done. So the order definitely matters. And week 1 at Detroit, couldn't ask for a better game, right, Nate?
I can't wait to watch Nick Bosa kill Jared Goff on national television. I'm so excited. It's going to be great because last year we had Arizona, and there was so much hype around Arizona leading into that game. And this year, there's no hype around this Detroit Lions team. It's Jared Goff, and Nick Bosa's back, and he's going to eat him alive.
And not only that, Penei Sewell just said he tested positive for COVID. It's his first game in God knows how long. Enjoy Nick Bosa. I know Bosa's coming off an ACL, but I'll take Jared Goff and Nick Bosa. I'll take that matchup any day of the week. I love starting off with Detroit, and they followed up another road game week 2 in Philadelphia, both early body clock games. So that'll probably be Niners staying on the East Coast, I would imagine, like they usually do in that situation. And I didn't want to get into this early, but I have to get into it, Nate.
I know where this is going.
Because you tweeted it this morning, and I had the exact same thought. We got kind of an early heads up on what some of the games were going to be. When you go Lions, Eagles, week 1 and week 2, if you were ever going to start a 21-year-old quarterback who's only played one game in the last year, those are the two teams you would pick to start the season with, right?
Yeah, I just think that, there's nothing about the Lions, nothing the Lions have that really scares me to, make Trey Lance's jump into the NFL harder. I think that anything, they're just going to score a ton of points on this team. And I think that if anything, they can afford to maybe look a little sloppy. It's week 1, and it's against a team who, really isn't a threat. And then with that Eagles team, they're not really that great either. I think they're on a rookie head coach. And I'm pretty sure both of those teams are actually rookie head coaches, if I'm thinking correctly. So I mean, you could go in there and Shanahan can kind of ease Trey Lance into the offense against 2 not good football teams before you see that third opponent, which is where things get a little more interesting.
Yeah, by the way, I just want to point out Jared Goff's passer rating against the Niners in the last 2 years, 70.3. Not exactly great if you're Jared Goff. I'm sure he probably didn't want to start the season against the 49ers either. And the other thing, Nate, too, I think it's a nice soft landing for DeMeco Ryans, our rookie defensive coordinator. Nobody thinks about that, but you're obviously going to be better at any job the longer you do it. And he's never been a defensive coordinator before. So I like him, especially week 1, starting against a quarterback he's very familiar with, and weeks 1 and 2, not exactly starting off with the juggernaut, so to speak.
Yeah, you're not going to have to scheme for any crazy offenses. I mean, not that I don't really know a ton about what the Lions are going to do this year. I don't think their offense is going to be anything special. They have DeAndre Swift or whatever, and that'll be a threat, obviously, but there's nothing about that offense that scares me. Just like with the Eagles, there's nothing about that offense that scares me other than the fact that they have a mobile quarterback, which is something San Francisco struggled in the past with. So, but I don't see Jalen Hurts as being, Lamar Jackson type speed when they come to Philadelphia.
And I just want to point out, I know a lot of people have already said this, but the last 2 times the 49ers opened the season against the Lions, the only 2 times, they won the Super Bowl, 1981 and 1984. So I'm not saying the Niners are going to win the Super Bowl championship. I'm just saying history kind of says, the Niners are going to win the Super Bowl championship.
Rookie quarterback going to win the Super Bowl the first time. Last year we had a first team to win the Super Bowl at home. This year we're going to have the first rookie quarterback to win the Super Bowl. It's just it's inevitable.
That is the perfect counter, because I've been saying that if the 49ers had good quarterback play, they could win the Super Bowl, and people are calling me crazy, and they're saying the same thing you're saying, Nate. Yeah. Oh, it's never happened before, but that's the perfect answer. Well, no team had ever hosted a Super Bowl, but the Buccaneers just did it, and they won. So stuff that's never happened before can happen.
And real quick, before we get into the rest of the schedule, the reason Trey Lance wore that LA hat today was because he was saying where he's going to be playing the Super Bowl in next year, letting everybody know, hey, this is where the Super Bowl is, and I'm going to be there. I'm going to be the quarterback there.
And we're going to get to the schedule, but you brought up the Trey Lance thing. Who cares what hat he wears? Like, didn't we already go through this when Colin Kaepernick had a Dolphins hat on and people got all mad? Like, who cares? This just in. He's came into, or he's going to come into as soon as he signs, a lot of money. He probably has a lot of hats. Get over it.
Yeah, no, it doesn't bother me at all. It's, it's a kid being a kid. And I'm just happy that he's coming to town. We're a day away from him being in town with that Niner helmet on. And, obviously we're not going to get to see a ton because it's just, shirts and helmet, but it's just exciting to know that he's here. And, we're not too far off from seeing him play in a preseason game here soon.
All right, let me run through the rest of the schedule quickly. So it's week 1 at Detroit, week 2 at Philadelphia, week 3 home opener against Aaron Rodgers, maybe, and the Packers on NBC Sunday Night Football. Week 4 is the first division game of the year. That is also at home. That's against Seattle. Week 5 is our first matchup against Arizona. That is in Arizona. And then, Nate, we get the week 6 bye, which isn't terrible. It is a little earlier than I would have liked. But what do you think of those first 5, or I should say 6 weeks for the Niners?
Obviously I like the first 2 weeks. I think those are definitely wins. I think that the Niners have owned Green Bay so much when they're healthy. And I think that the addition of Trey Sermon is going to scare the crap out of them. And I think that, the faithful being back in the building, all that hype, Sunday Night Football, the home opener, I expect the 49ers to come out and bring the heat and destroy Aaron Rodgers. I expect Nick Bosa to get after the quarterback. I expect to see some Samson Ebukam, and I expect to go win that game. And then Seattle comes to town the following week, and, they're coming off a pretty tough stretch to start. They play Indianapolis, the first game of the season in Indianapolis. Like, I don't want to see Indianapolis at all. That's a game I'm pretty worried about. And I think that, nothing Seattle did this offseason really scares me. I think their first pick they used this year in the draft was a wide receiver, and I think that they signed Dunlap again, and I think they signed Kerry Hyder, but they were the worst pass rush in the NFL. And yeah, it's gotten better, but it's not insanely better. It really comes down to, is the offense going to continue to be a gimmick like it was at the beginning of the season that got figured out, or are they going to figure out a way to continue to make that offense better to the point where they can become a threat and Russell Wilson won't be running for his life, which highly doubt that's going to happen anytime soon. And then what was the 4th game again, Rob? I forgot it. I'm sorry.
The 4th game is against Seattle. That's week 4.
Oh, I'm sorry. It was the 5th game. My bad.
Week 5 is Arizona in Arizona.
As long as Cliff Kingsbury's there, I'm not afraid of the Arizona Cardinals. And if Trey Lance is the quarterback, I feel even better about it because Jimmy Garoppolo cannot beat the Arizona Cardinals for some reason last year. Ran around like an idiot and couldn't do anything. And I'd love to have our own running quarterback against their running quarterback. And, our scheme versus their scheme, we're going to win that game for sure. I think if Trey Lance is the quarterback, but then that's the thing is the bye week is week 6. Do you start Jimmy Garoppolo for those first 4 weeks or 5 weeks, and then eventually put Trey Lance in at the bye? Or, that's a decision they're going to have to make. And I think that's a decision that's going to be made when we get to the preseason. I think that's not really a question anyone can answer until we get to the preseason games.
If you are wondering, the preseason is week 1 against the Chiefs, week 2 against the Chargers, and week 3 against the Raiders. So that was the question for me, was like, when is the bye week? Because when you're dealing with a possible quarterback change, the bye week is important because ideally you'd like to change quarterbacks before the bye so that the new guy has the extra week to learn the game plan, learn the plays, all that stuff. And so it's kind of an early bye for the 49ers. Do you think Kyle Shanahan, if he does start the season with Jimmy Garoppolo, as Mike Swaney says on Facebook, Jimmy will be our starter. Do you think if Kyle does go that route that he says, okay, you know what, 5 games, I've seen enough, we're making a change?
I think absolutely. I think that by then the rookie's ready. I mean, that's the thing is if he's as smart as we've been told, and that's been the thing that since the day they drafted Trey Lance, we've been told constantly how smart he is, how fast he picks it up, how fast he's able to learn everything. If he's as smart as we've been told and he's not the starter by the bye week, I think we have a problem. Or Jimmy Garoppolo's playing at an all-pro level. And if Jimmy Garoppolo's playing at an all-pro level, then that's terrific for us because that means we can rest Trey Lance. And in case Jimmy Garoppolo gets hurt, which he might because that's a thing that has happened many times, Trey Lance can come in, once that injury happens. But if Jimmy Garoppolo's playing at an all-pro level and we get to that week 5 or that week 6 bye, then great, keep playing him. But if we're sitting there and, we've lost 2 of those games to Seattle or to Green Bay or whatever, there's no reason that Trey Lance should not be the quarterback by week 6.
Yeah, I mean, I would like to see it earlier.
Me too.
Yeah, for sure. Alex, watching on YouTube, is asking for predictions on how many games Jimmy Garoppolo is going to start. I think, oh, man. Here's where
0.0. 0.0.
You're holding it up right there. Here's
0.0.
The thing, if he comes out in the preseason, even if it's, against scrubs and Lance is lighting it up, the rabble's going to start and it's going to start early. And Kyle can say all the nice things he wants about Jimmy Garoppolo. I think he would like, in a perfect world, if you gave Kyle Shanahan truth serum and said, who do you want to start at quarterback this year? He would say Trey Lance. I honestly believe that, given all the capital they gave up to get him and everything that was involved with that deal and how glowingly they've talked about him afterwards. I think that Kyle wants to start Trey Lance. I think he's looking for an excuse to start Trey Lance. And if he lights it up in the preseason, combined with those 2 games to start in Detroit and Philly, like we said, I think there's a good chance it is Trey Lance, and if he doesn't struggle, that'll be the end of Garoppolo in scarlet and gold.
Totally. I mean, that's how I feel too. Is the preseason for Trey Lance and Jimmy Garoppolo are so important because if Jimmy Garoppolo comes out against, the Kansas City Chiefs and any of those teams, rather, there's only 3 preseason games first. It's not 4 anymore. So that means that all important 4th game where it's just a bunch of BS going on, that's not happening anymore. So in all 3 of those games, Jimmy Garoppolo will play in all 3 of those preseason games.
Yes.
And when he steps off that field, if Trey Lance comes onto that field and looks that much better, which we've talked about on my shows many a times about how Russell Wilson came in, and every single time Russell Wilson came in his rookie year, he looked better than the starter. Dak Prescott, when he came in and started for that team, he looked way better than what Tony Romo had shown the last couple of years. And Tony Romo, keep in mind, had an injury problem. That was why Tony Romo kept missing seasons. Jimmy Garoppolo, injury problem, has a guy who could potentially have more talent than him. These preseason games are immensely, immensely important to what this team does, into this season.
I totally agree. I'm going to be glued to the set for sure from the second football comes back. Let's finish going through the rest of the schedule. Week 6 is the bye. Week 7 is a home game on Sunday Night Football. That's the DeForest Buckner reunion, Nate. I'm liking that. It's at home, at least for the 49ers, so that is good there. Then
I like that it's Carson Wentz on the other side of the field, too, and not Phillip Rivers.
Week 8 could be potentially awesome if Trey Lance is starting because they're in Chicago, and that could potentially be Trey Lance against the guy the 49ers passed up in Justin Fields. So I'm all for that game on Halloween. That's going to be great. Week 9, the Niners are back home. They face Arizona. Week 10, Monday Night Football, another primetime game. This is against the Rams. That's the first game against the Rams. So 2 division games back-to-back in weeks 9 and 10 for the Niners. Week 11, they travel to Jacksonville to play the number 1 pick in Trevor Lawrence and possibly Tim Tebow if he's there. Week 12, home against Minnesota. Kirk Cousins coming back to face his first love, or I guess Kyle Shanahan's first love. Week 13 is Sunday Night Football again. That is on the road against the Seattle Seahawks. And one thing I like is week 14 after that game, which could be a physical game, that is the game that the 49ers play, the 18th game, so to speak, against the Cincinnati Bengals. So
Joe
I'm
Burrow.
all for having a cupcake against or after a Seattle game for sure. Week 15, the Niners are back home again to face the Falcons. Week 16 is the Thursday night game, so they are on the road. That's December 23rd. They play Tennessee, which could be an interesting game. And Titans, some people think, are going to be fighting for a playoff spot, so there could be a lot on the line there. Week 17, home against the Texans. Outstanding cupcake game at home
Who is
at the
their
end of the
quarterback?
year.
I don't know.
Right. That Tyrod Taylor, great. Maybe it'd be Davis Mills
Maybe
by
it'd be
that
Jimmy
point.
Garoppolo.
that could be true if Jimmy gets moved. You never know. And then week 18 is a road game. So the Niners open the season and close the season on the road. They are in LA to face the Rams. And that is the only division game the 49ers play in the last quarter of their schedule. So sort of a weird ending there. And only 2 home games in the last 6 games the Niners play. So they're going to be on the road a lot at the end of the year.
I just think that this LA Rams team is really the only team that scares me on the schedule. Like, I mean, obviously I don't want to play that Colts team just because I think their defense is so good, but luckily Carson Wentz is on the other side of the field and he doesn't scare me at all. You know, he has a horrible decision-making constantly.
He did beat the 49ers last year.
To be fair, it was Nick Mullins that lost in that game.
Well,
not
that's
Carson.
true.
Carson Wentz did not beat the 49ers. Nick Mullins beat the 49ers. But the LA Rams scare me just because, you know, we talk about so much about Sean McVay and how he's basically similar to Kyle Shanahan. Well, now he has Matthew Stafford, and Matthew Stafford is much better than Jared Goff. So the thing is how good is Stafford with that team? Does he stay healthy? And if this final game of the season is flexed to Sunday Night Football and that's for the division, that wouldn't surprise me at all. There's so much that can be said about this Niners-Rams. I think the battle they're going to have for this division this year. And I think a lot of that's going to rely on quarterback play and who wins that division.
I completely agree with you. I'm worried about the Rams more than the Seahawks, to be honest with you.
Me too. No, totally. I'm not worried about the Seahawks. Their roster is not good.
Yeah,
they're the Seattle Russell Wilson still.
I know that the Rams, the 49ers have beaten the Rams 4 straight times, but that was with Jared Goff. And Sean McVay was still winning double-digit games with that cupcake every year, and now he's getting a much better quarterback, and we think he's going to be worse? Like, that doesn't make any sense to me.
No, they will not be worse. Absolutely not. The thing is the one thing that is kind of in the Niners' favor is some people think that Sean McVay got figured out 2 years ago. And if he did get figured out, no matter who the quarterback is, that's something that we can use to our advantage because nobody's figured out Kyle Shanahan still.
Well, that's true because Shanahan's the master and McVay and LaFleur and everybody else are the apprentices. Let's be honest. He's
Anakin to our Obi-Wan.
That's right. Obi-Wan is the greatest Jedi. Everybody knows it. How about this question from Eller Nick, who's watching on Periscope? What is the toughest game following a 10 a.m. East Coast game? That is an interesting. It's got to be Green Bay in week 3 after the game against the Eagles, right?
Yeah, I think you're probably right on that. But just because I just think just because it's the home opener and there's so much hype around that game and it being the fans back at Levi's, I think that's going to be a game they win. But that's a tough game, especially if it's Aaron Rodgers on the other side of the field. If it's Jordan Love, I'm not too worried about because I don't know what Jordan Love is really. Obviously nobody really does. And maybe it's Blake Bortles for all we know. Like who really knows what the Packers put out at quarterback? But we all know the Packers defense cannot stop the San Francisco 49ers at all. Cannot stop Raheem and will not be able to stop Trey and will not be able to stop Jeff Wilson. And so that's the thing is that the running back core, if the Niners are healthy in that game, they should be able to run all over that Green Bay team, no matter who the quarterback is. Just like Tampa Bay did last year around this same time. I think it was like week 3 or 4, Green Bay came into Tampa and just got destroyed. And I think that's what the 49ers will do to them.
I mean, they should be able to run on everybody, presumably. I was just thinking about it because you mentioned, we don't know. Aaron Rodgers potentially could be off Green Bay. We don't know. Mm-hmm. But there is a universe where the 49ers could play their whole schedule where the toughest quarterback they play is Russell Wilson, Kirk Cousins, and Matt Stafford. That is an amazingly easy schedule. If Rodgers is off the Packers, and we're assuming Deshaun Watson is not going to play, because right now it seems like he's not going to play with Houston. I mean, the quarterbacks, Jared Goff, Jalen Hurts, Aaron Rodgers, Russell Wilson, Kyler Murray, Carson Wentz, Justin Fields. Kyler Murray again, obviously Stafford
Andy
again.
Dalton.
Trevor Lawrence. Yeah, it's either Fields or Dalton. Kirk Cousins in week 12. Wilson again. Joe Burrow, Matt Ryan, Ryan Tannehill, whoever the hell the Texans are going to have. And then Stafford again. Like,
yeah. That's why I come to this thing constantly about quarterback on any show I do is it's so reliant on the 49ers quarterback play. And I think if the 49ers have anything close, if Trey Lance is anything close to Justin Herbert, they're in the Super Bowl. And that's why I've said that. I don't think that's a hot take because look at the schedule. We've known who these opponents were for so long, and now we know the order they're in. But if Trey Lance is anything like what Justin Herbert was able to do last year, they're in the Super Bowl. Like it's as simple as that. And obviously,
man.
That's not going to happen. That's not guaranteed to happen. You know, being Justin Herbert's pretty hard. He was really special. What's up, Fish? He was really special last year. And I think if Trey Lance is that guy, this team can win a lot of these games and potentially win the division and potentially the number 1 seed.
Let's get another opinion. Let's bring in Vish Kumar, and you know him from Mondays with Vish, with Grant Cohen, and also from his YouTube channel, Blake and Vish Sports. What's up, man?
I'm doing good. How are you guys?
We're just trying to break down this schedule. Nate thinks the 49ers are going 18-0 as long as Trey Lance starts, and they're guaranteed to win the Super Bowl. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a little bit of a stretch. I actually don't know what to make of this schedule yet. I've been kind of just going through it. I think there's quite a few really tough games, and
you do?
It's going to be. Yeah, I mean, I think the Colts are a tough team. I think all 6 division games are tough, actually. I really do. I think all 6 of them are tough games. I think the Colts are a tough game. I think the Vikings are going to be better. I think that if Aaron Rodgers plays, obviously Green Bay will be tough. So there's about 8 or 9 tough games, and then I'm assuming that one of these random teams is just going to blow up next year. That's the one thing I'm kind of worried about. Like, we look at, like, Cincinnati and Atlanta and all those teams, and we're like tight. And even the Titans, because, you know, they had to rebuild their entire defense. And we're like, okay, we can kind of look at those teams. They're taking a step back. The Niners are obviously taking a step forward with guys getting healthy. But it's hard to say. And I'm actually a little more worried actually about the Detroit game week 1 than most people. I think it's going to be a really, really ugly game. I don't think the Niners are just going to steam through Detroit. Their offensive line is terrific. Nick Bosa is coming off of an ACL. And here's a stat for everybody. In Kyle Shanahan's 13 seasons that he has ran an offense, so his 13 seasons as an offensive coordinator and a head coach, this is probably the most bizarre thing I've ever seen. Do you know what his team's average on week 1 points per game offensively?
I don't know. 19. Last year, I know that.
19.
Wow.
His offenses have struggled historically week 1. It's not like Jimmy Garoppolo has been pretty poor week 1. He was terrible week 1, 2019. He played pretty poorly last year. Minnesota game, I mean, he threw the 3 interceptions, but you also had a ton of drops throughout that game. I mean, George Kittle dropped a 70-yard touchdown. Pierre Garçon dropped 2 balls in the red zone. Alfred Morris fumbled at the half-yard line. And then obviously the first game with Brian Hoyer, Carolina steamrolled them. But this has been kind of a common theme with them week 1. Even Atlanta, the MVP year, Matt Ryan's MVP year, they went up against the 23rd ranked Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense, and they only put up 24 points, which is 9 less than their season average that year. So I still think they'll beat Detroit, but I think people are looking at that game as just they're going to steamroll them. I think Detroit's going to be a physical team next year. I don't think they'll be a good one, but I think they'll play a tough football game week 1.
Going to welcome in Graham Poobah from NinersNation.com. Kyle Posey. What's up, KP?
Nate, QBU. Love it. I want that shirt back, man. I love that.
I'll send you the link.
So, Kyle, Vish was just saying he thinks there's like 7, 8, maybe even 9 tough games for the Niners on the schedule. Nate and I kind of think it's set up pretty well for San Francisco. What do you think?
Yeah, I could see why, because, I mean, the 49ers were what? They were over a touchdown favorites in week 1 last year, and everybody thought they were going to steamroll the Cardinals. And lo and behold, that did not happen. And this is football, man. This happens every year where you look at a team, you look at a schedule, knowing that they have the talent on their roster. Yeah, the 49ers should win 12, 11 games, like at the bare minimum. And anything less than that would be a disappointment. And I don't disagree with that at all. But that's not how this game works. There are always these dogfight games where you're just going to get your best shot all the time, especially if you're the 49ers, who are a cash cow to the NFL. So with these 5 primetime games, the Cardinals, those are going to be tough. The Colts are not going to be easy. The Bears are a good team. And if Justin Fields is as good as we all hyped him up to be, that's not going to be an easy game by any stretch of the imagination. I will say, though, that December stretch where I saw some people saying that it might be a tough way to end the season, I actually think that's going to be the easier part of the schedule, where I don't think the Titans are going to be anywhere near as good as they were last year. I think there's going to be a drop-off there. The Falcons are the Falcons. They're probably not going to be, just a very good defensive team, and Kyle Shanahan tends to beat those type of teams up. And then you have the Bengals and the Texans. So, yeah, I'm not too worried about the last half of the schedule at all.
The only thing I don't like is that they play Atlanta in week 15, and then 4 days later is the Thursday night game against Tennessee. That's the only part of that I don't like, because I agree with you. It kind of sets up nice in December, but the 4 days, the short week there, Tennessee, Mike Vrabel is not a bad coach. That's the only part that gives me pause. Am I overthinking it, Nate?
I don't think so. No, I mean, Thursday night football games are notorious for injuries. That's the thing, is Richard Sherman's talked about it a million times. We shouldn't play games on Thursday night because our guys get injured. I think they had a game when he was in Seattle where they lost 4 key defensive starters on a Thursday night game against the Rams. And so he understands more than anything. It's hard on your body to play in a car crash on Sunday, 4 days later, go play in another car crash. And so that's the thing is, and Tennessee's physical. Their defense is going to be as good. Like Bish said, they're still physical. And Derrick Henry's going to run the ball right up your freaking face. That's going to be their plan. That is going to be their plan when they play San Francisco on 4 days rest. They're going to run the ball right up your face, and you're going to have to stop it. And it's going to be up to Kinlaw and Eric Armstead and hopefully D Ford and Ebukam and Bosa to stop that. And Fred Warner, of course. It's going to be them being able to stop Derrick Henry is how they win that game.
That's my thing with Tennessee. And I think their offensive line, when they get Taylor Lewan back, Roger Saffold's a mauler. Taylor Lewan is, when he's healthy, one of the better left tackles in the NFL. Obviously, Derrick Henry, that's going to be kind of where he starts his stretch run. He's kind of very good at the beginning of the season, and then November, December hits, and he turns into a prime Adrian Peterson, and he just is running for 200 yards every other game. So that game worries me. And then I have a question for KP, because I actually think Atlanta's defense is going to be much improved, and I think that's solely because of Dean Pease. When you go from Dan Quinn, who's pretty much as vanilla as any defensive coordinator out there, to Dean Pease, who probably does as much as anybody, I think it's going to make a difference. You look at the Titans defense 2 years ago when they went to the AFC Championship game. I didn't look at that Titans defense as this overly talented defense. They really couldn't rush the passer even then, and that was with the rookie Jeffrey Simmons. And they did pretty well on defense because Dean Pease was so creative on third down. So I think that Atlanta is going to be a little tougher, especially because when I look at Kyle Pitts on that offense, I look at it as as long as they're not a cursed organization once again, Atlanta's got to be one of the top 3 or 4 offenses in the NFL when you have Kyle Pitts, Calvin Ridley, Matt Ryan, and possibly still Julio.
I agree with that. So I agree with the offensive part because they are going to score points, and we all expect the 49ers defense to remain a top 10 defense. But against Atlanta, it is going to be tough for any team to slow them down, especially if they're still a healthy Julio. Calvin Ridley is so underrated, and they upgraded on the offensive line. So back to the defense, Dean Pease, I feel like he is aggressive, and that does help against certain teams, against certain, play callers. So the Ravens in that playoff game that you mentioned, the Ravens didn't really – so Greg Roman was calling their freaking plays, and you guys know about Greg Roman. But Kyle Shanahan is a different beast, and when you just look at their roster, at who the Falcons have on the other side of the ball, name one player that would scare you or that would even threaten you, and you really can't name that person. Deion Jones, is that going to be your answer? The ghost of Grady Jarrett? There's nobody in that secondary that really, would worry you. So just for those reasons, I wouldn't be as worried about the Falcons because I just don't think they're capable of getting stops. The 49ers would essentially have to shoot themselves in the foot, which I will not put that past them because they are very talented at that. What I would be worried about more so is, so there are 7 games packed in the middle of the schedule, and they're all good teams. So if we just go down starting week 3, so you have the Packers at home, but it's still Aaron Rodgers. Not going to be easy. Then you have Russell Wilson. Then you have Kyler Murray. Then you get the bye, which probably comes at a good time after you're facing those 3 quality teams, But you come off that, Colts, really good roster. Just talked about the Bears. Cardinals, Rams again. So that is going to be a fun stretch where every week, I imagine that spread is not going to be greater than like 3 or 4 points. So we're going to see some quality football this year. And I think we're going to find out a lot about the 49ers early on.
I think the elephant in the room too, with me and Rob were talking a little bit about before you guys got here, is like, who's the quarterback in these games? And so like with the early bye week, it allows you to start Jimmy Garoppolo at the beginning of the season if you want. And if he's not good, then switch. But I mean, in an ideal world, week 15 against the Falcons, Trey Lance is the quarterback. And the threat of him running the football, and his superior arm strength, his superior decision-making, and his superior just everything, compared to Jimmy Garoppolo, that defense doesn't scare me at all. And so, I mean, that's the one thing I think that's hard to gauge the schedule from, is because we do not know who the quarterback is going to be exactly.
Should we just assume that it is Jimmy until further notice, or like how does that work? Because if you're looking at the schedule, you don't. Ideally, you have the rookie come in after the bye, but those teams that we just reeled off, you probably don't want Trey Lance getting off the ground against a good Colts team, a good Bears team, a good Cardinals team, a good Rams. Like those are all really good defenses that play fast and that are aggressive. So I'm not sure if you want to roll your rookie out there against those type of teams. But then again, after that, you have Jaguars and Vikings, and then Bengals, Falcons, Titans. So it might be a better question to just wait a little down the road for Trey Lance. But again, like that's pretty fast. It's fascinating to think about because there are so many different variables and answers to that question.
So I think, go ahead, Rob, my bad.
Well, I was just going to ask you, Vish, like to me, and Nate and I were talking about this, you start Lions, Eagles, start Lance from the get-go. Don't worry about starting him against the Colts, KP. Start him week 1 against the Lions and let's roll. What do you think, Vish?
Yeah, I've always been in the boat. If he's ready by the end of training camp, there should be no attachment to Jimmy Garoppolo. I don't understand this. This team just traded 2 first-round picks for a quarterback, and it's just, I mean, people don't like when you say 3, but it's we've called this 3 first-round picks for the last 10 years I've been watching the NFL, but now people don't like it, so I say 2 and a third. You don't trade that much so that he can ride the bench. They did it 1 month before the draft. They really wanted to get a quarterback, so if he's ready, he should be on the field. To me, that part of it makes no sense. In terms of when he should start, if that first start is against the Colts, geez, that's a rough place to start.
It is.
Even if Kyle Shanahan can do so many things, the thing with the Colts defense is that they're not overly complicated schematically. They're a little bit like the Niners defense from 2019, but maybe a little less creative in the sense that they play very sound. They play zone coverage, and they're really, really fast. And so I think that would be a really, really tough spot for Trey Lance to start, especially I think that's a Sunday night game, right?
It is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I wouldn't wish that upon him. I think you guys have the right idea. If he's ready week 1, there should be nothing here. There should be no reason to start Jimmy Garoppolo, because if they had that my thought process, oh my God, then why are you trading up 1 month before the draft to go get a quarterback? Why are you trading this much to go get a quarterback? If you're comfortable with Jimmy starting this year, you could have waited and seen there's a quarterback at 6 that we kind of like. Let's go get him on the day of the draft. The fact that they did it 1 month before the draft, to me, it's a no-brainer. Whenever he's ready, he should start.
Absolutely. That's the thing is, I said before you guys got here, those preseason games, if he looks like he's a comparable football player, which I think he's going to look like that, I think that we're going to see some of that Russell Wilson stuff we saw when he took over in Seattle, where every time the starter stepped off the field and Russell Wilson came in preseason, he was noticeably better. If we see that, then there's no reason that he should not be the starter against the Detroit Lions week 1.
Quick question or a comment I want to answer here. Donald, watching on Facebook, asks, should we see what Rosen has to offer in the preseason to see what we have in him? No. That's it. That's all I'm going to say about that. That should not be a thing.
Rosen sucks.
I look at it as Kyle wants a reason not to start Lance. That's what the preseason is going to be about. And as long as he doesn't get one, I think that's who he's going with. And Jimmy will just have to deal with it. And I think that Kyle looks at it like I can get him through the first 2 weeks. Week 3 against the Packers is going to be tough, but you know what? You got to win these games if you're going to be a big time quarterback. But I think by game 3, I think Kyle thinks, hey, I can get him up and running enough to where he'll be okay.
Do you remember the Raiders situation when they drafted Derek Carr and everybody thought that Carr was going to sit and Matt Schaub would be the guy? And Jimmy is much better than Matt Schaub. I'm not comparing the two players. I'm just comparing the situation where Derek Carr comes in and they're like, oh, we're going to take this guy off the field. Do you guys just see any sort of scenario where that happens with Trey Lance and Jimmy Garoppolo, where Trey comes in and yeah, it's a preseason, but you have to remember also he's going against the 49ers defense every day in training camp, where the other quarterback that we are talking about, I have seen him in training camp the last 2 years, and I can pull up the notes that have been published on Niners Nation. It is not pretty. And I feel like that always gets danced around too. So now that there is competition and we have a chance to see Lance go against a better defense and he does light it up, is there any situation where you can see a Derek Carr, Matt Schaub scenario working out where he's just so good that you have to play him?
I actually see a different scenario. I see Carson Wentz, Sam Bradford, injury-prone starter, pretty throwing motion, accurate short thrower, FCS, NDSU, big guy, played in a pro-style offense. To me, it's the same exact thing all over again. Now, I don't wish anybody to get the Teddy Bridgewater injury, allowing the Niners to just unload Garoppolo for a first and a fourth, the way the Vikings were able to the Eagles were able to Sam Bradford to the Vikings. But I could see something like that happening. And I don't remember Carson Wentz being overly impressive in that preseason, but by all accounts, he was killing it in training camp, and the coaches were just wowed by him in practice. And I think that's the big thing. And KP, you touched on it, and I feel like you and Grant actually are the two beat writers that have harped on this the most. Like, Jimmy Garoppolo has not been very good in practice in his time with the 49ers. So I think that should give you all the more reason. If, like Kyle Shanahan has talked about, how he kind of knows and can gauge through practice. He doesn't care about preseason games and all of that. So if he's ready, I mean, I'm not saying rush Trey Lance and make him the starter. That's why you have Jimmy. But if he's ready, there's no reason to not put him on the field.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. That's the thing is, like, we've watched Jimmy Garoppolo. We know what he is. He's 30 years old. Like, he's not going to change. He's going to go out there and he's going to do his Jimmy Garoppolo thing, which, like you said, he's better than Matt Schaub. He's a decent quarterback. He generally is okay. That Arizona game last year was, one of the worst football games I've ever watched from a quarterback. But, like, we know what we're getting into. Sorry. It's true. It's really hard to watch. I've watched it recently. It hurts your eyes. Like, don't watch it if you haven't watched it recently. Anyways, but the thing is we know what Jimmy Garoppolo is. I feel like if anybody knows what Trey Lance is, it's Kyle Shanahan. And I think that he's going to see pretty quickly into training camp who his quarterback is going to be. But they won't announce it until preseason's over. But I think when we have our own eyes on these preseason games and Kyle has his eyes, like, there's no reason that they should be like, well, we spent $24 million on this guy, we got to start him. Like, no, you spent 3 first-round picks on the guy. Start him. He's better. We know he's better.
KP, we've been talking about the schedule here, and everybody, all the teams put in their special requests for the schedule. Some teams want to have if they have East Coast games, have them back-to-back. They'll all do that. There's a million, billion, trillion possibilities for the schedule. How do you think the Niners feel about this schedule?
I would say that they have to be pretty happy. So they're starting on the road back to back, but they get Green Bay and Seattle at home early in the season. I feel like that's something that you would want. And then again, looking at December, there's no way you can be upset about going to Jacksonville, which is in November, going to Cincinnati, which is in December, then playing the Falcons. And then if you're going to get a team, I know we just talked about them being smash mouth, but on the other side of the ball, the Titans are soft on defense. So having the Titans and the Texans in December, or January, technically, I guess, that would not be something that you could complain about, because they could have easily had a murderer's row or a gauntlet, as was the case in 2019. And while they handled that well, those games are usually the type of games that are coin flips. So yeah, I would not be too upset if I were them at all. But it doesn't hurt that they have a last place schedule as well. So they're definitely benefiting from that.
I think the other thing to look at is, I don't look at this schedule and say, wow, like, man, if they go there outside of maybe Cincinnati in December, I don't look at it as they're going to be screwed by weather. Like, I live in Chicago. I know what October is like in Chicago compared to November in the city. It's a massive difference. So, like, I think that makes a difference too, where they're not going to have to go to a game where, like, you go to Lambeau Field in the middle of December and it's just you're playing in a blizzard and basically you lose that game because you played in a blizzard. That kind of thing is not going to happen to them because they're playing warm weather teams in December outside of Cincinnati.
Yeah, you get Philly early on too at Philly, so that's another one.
Yeah. That'll be a great second game of Trey Lance's career to go to Philadelphia and deal with those fans. My goodness.
In terms of
Kyle's
weather,
gonna start. I was just saying, Kyle's going to start me so he doesn't have to deal with the Philly fans.
oh god,
Match of the year right there, baby.
I'm surprised that really, the only bad weather game, Cincinnati in December, that could get dicey. But other than that, and maybe Seattle in December, you get one of those really cold, just horrible Seattle days that they always seem to end up playing at least one game like that. But other than that, they make out pretty well. And I don't want to, I'm tempted to do the thing where you go, okay, 1-0, 2-0. I don't want to do that because it's May, but the way I look at it and the way it's laid out, I know the 49ers have, 5 early body clock games at 10 a.m., but the fact that 2 of those are back to back, you got basically 20% of your road games are taken care of in the first 2 weeks of the season. I think it lays out very well. And you start to look at some of the other schedules, especially of the teams in the division. I think the 49ers are set up, man. I hate to, I don't want to wear the homer hat, but Nate, do you have the Seahawks schedule pulled up in front of you?
I can pull it up real quick if you want. It's awful.
I got it.
You all right, KP? Give us some highlights from the Seahawks schedule. How's it looking?
So they open up at the Colts. That's not going to be an easy game because that is at Indy and it's a 10 a.m. game. So then they go Titans at Vikings so they go week 4 is at Niners. Then they go to the Rams on a short week Thursday night. That's not going to be easy. And then they go travel from Los Angeles on Thursday and play the Steelers. And then they go Steelers to the Saints on Monday night. Then they get the Jags bye week. And then they come back after the bye at Green Bay, Arizona, Washington, San Francisco. They get a break with the Texans, but then they go Rams, Bears, Lions at Cardinals. So there's a big difference in the schedules when you're just looking at what the Seahawks have to do compared to what the 49ers have to do.
Here's my thing with Seattle, though. I feel this way every single offseason. I look at their schedule. I'm like, oh, they're really in for it this year. I look at their roster, and I'm like, yeah, there's no way Russell Wilson's taking this roster to the playoffs this year. And then you're around week 8. They're 6-2.
Right.
The schedule is somehow worked out conveniently. This quarterback didn't play this game. These 2 players didn't play that game. And these teams aren't as good as we anticipated. And I'm like, oh, crap. They're really good again. So that's my reservation with Seattle. I'm trying not to do this year because I've been caught into doing this the last 3-4 years, and it's not ended well for me.
Brand new offensive coordinator, though. Keep that in mind. So they're literally running out a brand new offensive system, which could either be good or bad. And, Pete Carroll's still going to do that stupid thing where he runs the running back on all 3 downs. So, despite the fact their quarterback is going to be a Hall of Famer.
Yeah, I love starting the year against 2 rookie head coaches. That's fantastic. They get another rookie head coach in Urban Meyer. Great. Coaching matters, and I love playing against rookie head coaches for sure. I think Kyle Shanahan is one of the better situational head coaches in the league, and sometimes these games are close, and it comes down to those kind of decisions, and I want the guy that, has been there for years and has playoff and Super Bowl experience over the guys that have never done it before.
How do you think Kyle Shanahan's aggression will be if we do see Trey Lance in? Is he going to dial it back even more? Or what do you guys think about that?
I've been thinking about it a lot lately, and it brings me back to what they did with Nick Mullins and CJ Beathard and the fact that, we know how bad those guys are. We generally know how terrible they are. And the fact that Kyle Shanahan has found ways to win with those guys, if he does what he did with Nick Mullins and CJ Beathard, they're going to see a lot more success because Trey Lance is that much of a better player. But as the season goes on, if he starts getting a little more fun with it, they are going to be electric to watch, I think, with Trey Lance. If they can, start slow against 2, obviously the lines might be physical, but those are technically 2 pretty bad teams before they play Green Bay. And so if he can start slow and use those 2 weeks to, while things look a little sloppy, to kind of ease everything in, maybe run Debo out of the, as a running back a couple times while we're still figuring things out. By mid-season, we're looking at a team that is just insane to watch because they're using Trey Lance the way he should be used because he understands this, because he is so smart and he can pick it up faster than a normal quarterback would be able to pick it up.
This is an interesting question from Nick, who's watching on Periscope, who asks, what game is set up as the letdown game? And I just looking at the schedule really quick. I mean, maybe Jacksonville week 11, because weeks 9 and 10 are both division games. They go Cardinals at home, then week 10 Monday Night Football against the Rams, and then you think, oh, okay, let's exhale. We got the Jags here. They were terrible last year.
Fields and the Bears. That's my letdown game.
You think it's? I don't know. I think it's week 11. KP, what do you think for a letdown game for the Niners?
Kyle Shanahan is about to lose to Kirk Cousins, man.
That's one I was looking at too.
Just imagine, like, he is gonna drive him, like he'll never be able to sleep again if that happens. But it's always about the combination of games leading up to it. So you just mentioned Cardinals, Rams, two divisional games that are going to be tough. They have a little bit of a not so much letdown game, but easy game against the Jags. And then before you move on to the Seahawks, maybe they're caught looking ahead, and Kirk Cousins just has one of those Kirk Cousins blackout games, and the defense, he just gets the best of the defense. So I'm going with the Vikings. Bish, what's your answer?
Yeah, I was also looking at the same thing, and I actually think Minnesota is going to be a tough team this year. I thought they addressed some of their needs. Like, I thought Dalvin Tomlinson was a good get in free agency. He adds real size to their defensive line, and they still got some really good players. Like Danielle Hunter coming back is going to make a big difference. KP, I know you're a big Cam Dantzler fan, and he had a pretty good rookie season, so
he was the best cornerback, the rookie cornerback. We can be honest about this.
Really? You thought he was better than the Chiefs guy?
Yes. And that was my other guy too. So feels good to be right every once in a while.
Wow, break your arm, patting yourself on the back there, KP.
So here's the thing about Justin Fields to the Niners.
I think that the idea of, Justin Fields, Trey Lance is going to be so exciting. There's going to be so much hype leading up to that game. And I just think that that's going to be the game where they just let you down somehow. That, Justin Fields comes out with a chip on his shoulder. You didn't take me at 3. You took this kid. I'm going to go out there and I'm going to beat him. And I think that's the letdown game, because I think that there's so much hype around that game.
What are the odds that game is Andy Dalton versus Jimmy Garoppolo? Middle of the season, so they have plenty of time to get ruin it. But could you? I know, I'm that guy.
I'm planning to go to that game. If it's Andy Dalton, Jimmy Garoppolo, I'm selling my ticket. It's nothing against those two players. It's nothing. You just don't want to watch those two players. Yeah.
Oh my God.
I mean, it's gonna October 31st is still gonna be cold. All right. I don't want to sit outside. Soldier Field is kind of crappy. The bench, it's like you're sitting on real benches. It's not like the greatest place to sit. And Bears fans are a little wild. Like, I don't want to object myself to that to watch Andy Dalton versus Jimmy Garoppolo.
That's the thing, though. You're right. Like it changes the whole complexion of the game. And that's why I'm hoping that, I'm sure the NFL is hoping, right? Like, the NFL doesn't want to see Jimmy Garoppolo or Andy Dalton or Jimmy Garoppolo and Nick Foles. They want to see the two rookies going up against each other. The NFL's got to step in and do the right thing here. Damn it.
It's 20% for me. Like, I just think it's slim to none, that it happens, because I just don't think that, I think that we're good. I just thought about it, and Matt Nagy is kind of an idiot. But the thing is if Matt Nagy has any semblance of a brain in his skull, he's gonna notice that Justin Fields is better than Andy Dalton. And I just think that, just like I said with Kyle Shanahan, I think he's gonna see that Trey Lance is better than Jimmy Garoppolo in training camp and in preseason. And I think that those are going to be the teams that start for those players will start for those teams at the beginning of the season. Personally, that's what I think. But I mean, it's Matt Nagy, so I don't know. He might do something real stupid. But I mean, God, I hope that's who it is, because I don't want to watch Jimmy Garoppolo and Andy Dalton at all.
So looking at the Bears schedule real quick, their bye week is not until week 10, and they obviously play the 49ers in week 8. So they're going at Rams. No way you throw a rookie there. But then you go Bengals, Browns, Lions, Raiders. Why not throw the rookie into there? And one of those games at least, but who knows? Dalton might be, be able to put up enough numbers.
I wouldn't want to throw him into the Browns game.
True. Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
But here's the other thing, though. Nagy and Pace, the GM, are hanging on by a thread, job security wise.
Yeah.
If you don't start Fields and they come out of the gate, I mean, if they lose to the Rams, maybe they beat Cincinnati. They might lose to the Browns. Like if you come out shaky, you don't have time to wait to play the rookie. The rookie's the only thing keeping you employed.
Okay, here's my thing. I look at the Fields thing as Deshaun Watson in Houston, his rookie year. Do you remember Tom Savage? They made this big circus about starting Tom Savage, and by the second half of week 1, Deshaun Watson was in the game. That's what I think is going to happen in Chicago too. And Andy Dalton's way better than Tom Savage. He's actually been a pretty solid quarterback through the entirety of his career. But these Bears fans here hate Matt Nagy and Ryan Pace so much. And they've been saved right now by the fact that they've drafted Justin Fields. If Andy Dalton even throws an incomplete pass, people are going to be clamoring for Justin Fields. So I think that they're just going to bite the bullet because they're better off playing Justin Fields and him not being good than they are not playing Justin Fields and being a good team, I would say. Because people will always look at it as, yeah, you're pretty good, but what are we really going to do? Just get Justin Fields into the game. And then I had one thought in terms of the Niners, because I look at the Niners and I look at their defense, and their defense especially, and I think it's actually underrated how good this defense is going to be. When you have Fred Warner, who's playing at the level he's playing at, you bring back Bosa, Eric Armstead, Jimmy Ward, hopefully him and Tarter healthy, and if they are, that's a really dominant safety tandem, and then Verrett and all of that. I think this has potential not to be the 2019 defense, but to be a top 2 or 3 defense in the NFL and really dominate games. That's where I ask, like, if this defense goes out and dominates, and Jimmy Garoppolo's 2019 Jimmy Garoppolo, which is sometimes pretty good, sometimes pretty bad, sometimes, kind of all over the place, but consistently this okay quarterback, and the Niners like shoot up to this like 6-0 or 5-1 or 6-2 start, and you're like looking at it, would you still look to insert Trey Lance, or what would you do in that situation? Because it is a possibility, right? They've shown they can win games with Jimmy Garoppolo, no matter what all 4 of us think of Jimmy Garoppolo or what his true ceiling is and all of those things.
I'll go first. I'm done with Jimmy Garoppolo. I don't care how he's playing. Like, he shouldn't play a snap unless Lance is hurt. But if you want to start the season with him because reasons, I don't know. Like, can't even imagine why you would start him week 1. Like, Lance needs to play. You traded up a ton to get him. But if you go with Jimmy week 1, the second you think Lance is ready, I don't care how good Jimmy Garoppolo is playing. If you thought you could get there with Jimmy Garoppolo, Trey Lance isn't on the team. Period. End of discussion. And KP, you said it earlier this offseason, and it was brilliant, and I give you credit every time I bring it up. If you need a better backup quarterback, you need a better starting quarterback. And that's what the 49ers have needed when Jimmy Garoppolo has been here. So even if Kyle wanted to play with Jimmy, I don't think he would last long enough for this to even become a problem.
So I got to go with it. I got to go, but I want to leave you guys with this. We were just talking about Ryan Pace and Matt Nagy. Lynch and Shanahan, yes, they went to the Super Bowl in 2019 when it was the perfect storm in the most literal sense. There are other seasons that happened since then. And last year, 2018 and 2017 were awful. So with that in mind, imagine getting to week 8, because that's where that Justin Fields game is, getting to week 8 and not having any clue of the type of player Trey Lance is. So you just traded all of that draft capital for one of the biggest values is having a rookie quarterback on the rookie contract so you can invest in your other team or invest assets in the rest of your team, knowing that you have no idea who Trey Lance is because you wanted to use a wildcat package for 5 to 10 plays again. What does that say about you? So yeah, that would be like terrifying knowing that we get that far into the season and just have no idea who the we just have no idea who Trey Lance, the player, is. So yeah, that is another reason why I think he plays earlier than a lot of us think, and not us in here, but just the general public thinks. And I think just once the media sees Trey Lance drop back and throw, this wildcat stuff is going to go out of the window, and that's why they traded up for him. So
Friday,
yeah, I think Friday, I like that. Yeah,
can't wait.
Just watch how the narrative. Watch how the narrative changes as training camp gets underway, and that's what I'll leave you with. Take care, boys. This was fun.
Take it easy,
Thanks, KP. If they use Trey Lance the way the Saints use Taysom Hill, I will lose it. I think that is the stupidest thing. I hate people just throwing it out. Oh, the Taysom Hill package. Oh, super cool, the Taysom Hill package. Yeah. Taysom Hill's an undrafted player who plays as a part-time special teams player, and a third of the time he plays tight end. This is not the same thing. This doesn't give him reps. Remember, the Ravens tried doing this when Lamar Jackson was a rookie, right? You remember they tried the Joe Flacco experience, and Flacco would have his hands on his hip and roll his eyes when Lamar would come in and run one read option play that would barely work. And then finally their backs were against the wall. They're a 500 team. They put Lamar in the game and they go 5-1 and make the playoffs because of Lamar Jackson's special ability to run. So to me, this is like, I think that Taysom Hill idea and the Taysom Hill package thing is so stupid. And then I did want to say one more thing. So KP brought up the idea of like, what if you get to week 8 and Justin Fields looks really good because the Bears inserted in and you don't know what Trey Lance is, how that could look. I'll say one thing that I hate saying this, but I think it's a reality of a fact that we don't talk about enough, right? Like we look at Matt Nagy and Ryan Pace, they have the worst of the worst reputations. Everybody looks at them like they suck and they need to be fired. Here's the problem. The two of them have made the playoffs twice in the last 3 years. They've made the playoffs twice in the last 4 years. John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan have had 3 losing seasons in the last 4 years. So if you look at the difference in their perceptions, if that scenario that KP brought up happens, the perceptions on both of these guys, like these regimes, could change very, very fast.
Yeah, and I think that the fact that, your quarterback that you drafted hasn't played football in a year. Like, are we really going to have him play football for 2 years? I cannot fathom Trey Lance sitting on the bench for 2 years straight while Jimmy Garoppolo throws the ball to the other team. Like, that would blow my mind if that happens. He has to play. Jimmy Garoppolo has to play at an all-pro level for me to even think about starting him. And he has to play an all-pro level from preseason on. Like, it has to be like he comes out against Kansas City and plays his one series, and he looks phenomenal. And he comes out against the Chargers, phenomenal. Rams, just as the season goes on, continues it. Because the minute he stops, he looks like he's, not that guy, they have to make that decision quick because this is a kid who sat for a year already. I do not want him to sit for a whole nother year, especially when he needs to learn how to play NFL talent. Despite the fact he doesn't get hit, he knows how to get out of the pocket, all that stuff. But NFL talent is still different than North Dakota State quarterback you.
Slightly. Yes, slightly.
I have a, if you don't mind, because I also got to head out soon, but I really have a problem with the Kansas City model. I think it's way too idealistic. I don't think Kansas City went into that draft saying we need to get a quarterback. I think they started studying that quarterbacks in the draft and they said, whoa, there's this really special talent. Let's trade up and go get him because we're comfortable with Alex Smith. The Niners came into this draft and said we need a quarterback. Why do I say that? Because a month before the draft, they traded 3 first-round picks to get to number 3 overall. And Kyle Shanahan told us in his press conference, everybody always takes Kyle's words literally. He said we needed a starting quarterback. We decided we needed one this year, and we went and got one. So the Kansas City model makes no sense to me. The other thing is Patrick Mahomes threw like 1,300 throws in college. His problem wasn't reps. It was the fact that he came from an air raid system, a system that the NFL hadn't adapted yet. And he had to learn how to get into a huddle. He had to learn how to, spit out a play in a huddle and all of that. When he used to just line up 4 receivers and he would just be drop back and throw. Trey Lance has the advantage because he did those things in college. His problem, he's unique in the sense that he's advanced from the standpoint is he's huddled. He's spit out long plays. He's been able to identify defenses, and call out his protections, though I think other quarterbacks in this draft did it and didn't get credit for it. He was the only one that did, but he did do all of those things. His big thing is that he just hasn't thrown the ball enough in real game reps. So, like, as Nate said, do you just sit him one more year? He's not going to learn, I think, any more from, a psychological and all of, theory standpoint by sitting. For him, it's more about applying what he's learned and doing that. And that's where I think it comes back to when he's ready, whenever that is. If he's ready week 1, play him week 1. If he's ready week 8, and even if the Niners are 6-2, play him week 8. If he's ready week 2, play him week 2. But whenever he's ready, he needs to be the starting quarterback for the Niners, regardless of what Jimmy's doing and regardless of what's going on.
I totally agree. You don't learn how to drive a car by watching somebody else do it. You learn by getting behind the wheel. All of his issues to me are only solved if he's actually on the field. So hopefully that happens. Let's wrap it up with this. I know I said I wasn't going to do it, but I have to because I feel like every fan is doing the exact same thing now that the schedule is out. And what are we doing it? If not fans? How many wins do you think the 49ers are getting this year, Nate?
12-5.
Wow, 12-5. What are the 5 losses?
You put me on the spot.
Yeah, I did.
Colts. Seattle once.
Okay.
LA once. Okay. Arizona once.
All right.
And
one more.
I don't even think they're going to lose, but we'll save the Minnesota game just for, purpose on this show. But I mean, there's a chance they could potentially go 13-4, but I'm just, like, that Green Bay game is one of those games where it's just like, yes, that's a very good team with Aaron Rodgers, but that atmosphere at Levi's when they are good is unlike anything I've ever been in my entire life. Like, I've been to Sharks playoff games. I've been to Giants World Series games. I've been to the Warriors games. When the Niners are good, that atmosphere and the NFC Championship game when the Niners played the Packers was unlike anything I've ever experienced in my entire life. And that is what it's going to be like on September 26th at Levi Stadium. It's going to be insane. And if they don't win that game, I'll be blown away. Just like I would have been blown away if we drafted freaking Mac Jones.
Vish, what about you before you head out?
Yeah, I'm going to go 11-6. I'm going to say they go 3-3 within the division. I think there is going to be one Rams loss this year. I think people are sleeping on the fact that Matthew Stafford is going to make a real massive difference to that Rams offense. So I'm going to say 3-3. They're going to split the division. I'm going to also say the Colts. That's my 4th. I'm going to pick Atlanta as kind of like a sleeper loss as the 5th one. And then I think that they're going to drop I think they're going to drop a game between either the Packers or the Vikings. One of those NFC North games. Packers, Vikings, or Bears. I think they're just going to lose one of them just because maybe something goes wrong or they have a bad circumstance or something like that. I just think so. I think 11-6 is my conservative prediction. I always pick conservative when it comes to the 49ers because that's fandom superstition all the way. Like, even if I'm doing this objectively, I still can't get that out of my mind. So, like, I'll be pleasant. Like, if they do, I'm hedging my bet, right? Because if they do poorly, I can be like, all right, I expected this. Just move on with my life. But if they do better, then I can be like, whoa, they even surprised me. I'm an idiot. And then I can be like, yeah, 13-4, let's go.
I'm going to say, I actually think that they are going to not split I think that they are going to beat the Cardinals twice, but I think that they're going to lose to the Rams twice. So like it's different kind of setup there. I think that they're going to lose to Green Bay, even though it's a tough environment, especially if it's Trey Lance. Like, I'll give Aaron Rodgers a little bit of love there, even though everyone's kind of pooping on him a little bit. I'll say they go, 11-6?
That's what Vish said.
Yeah, I'm going to have to go there. I think that they could be really, really good. They could definitely be better than that, but Trey Lance is still a rookie. I think if they get into the playoffs, they could be extremely dangerous. They have as good a chance as anybody if they can get into the playoffs. I'll say that. Before we go really quick, I want to give a shout out to Nathan, and I'm sorry if I butcher your last name, Bobik, who's listening to us from Melbourne, Australia. Nice to know Niners Nation is international. We thank you very much. Thank you, everybody, for your comments. We really appreciate it. We're going to try and do more and more live broadcasts, especially throughout the off season. Thanks again. Rate, review, and subscribe to the Niners Nation Podcast Network. Leave a question in your review. We will be happy to answer it. Thanks again for listening, everybody. And we'll talk to you again soon.
Welcome to the 2022 hype train. We ain't stopping, baby. Let's go.